that you'd like to pitch for now and say you think he has a good chance? We'll go for one each now, and later on we can look at it with 2 laps to go, say.
Well, I think it's going to be an enormous lottery today, especially with the weather forecast. They're giving maybe rain in the afternoon. So, you know.
Would you like to stick a pin in the start
I think that would be the best chance, because we see the weather going down yesterday, and if it's wet in the finals day for those guys, in the beginning it's not going to be a problem because they will take it cautiously. But in the end, when you're on the limit, there's no chance. Like, there's a guy that's going to go down if it's wet, and you know, that's definitely going to happen if it's going to be wet roads. But my choice will be stick a pin in the paper. I think Nico Eickhout.
Oh, wow. Sean's got a little smile on his face. He's obviously got some inside information for the Belgians that we know not of. Well, his pin has landed on a very interesting rider there. Next pin going down the start list. Russell Williams, good morning, Russell.
Good morning. Well, I'm going to go...
Good afternoon to you. You're up at 6 o'clock this morning again. This is your time you had your third breakfast. Go on,
hey,
in you go.
I'm going to go for the strongest team here. That's Great Britain. We've got 2 riders. We've got Julian Wynne, the national champion, and we've got David Miller. And I believe that David Miller's going to be fired up. He's obviously going to be unhappy after only finishing 5th in a time trial. So this course could suit David. Obviously he's not a sprinter, so he's probably going to go out in the early laps. So I'm going to go for David Miller in the strong team of Great Britain, and good luck to Julian Wynne, who's going to work hard for him. But also I suppose we've got to look out for the man in the picture just to the left there, Fred Rodriguez.
I'm going to be a fuddy-duddy, and I'm going for Yo Mazeo. Today's going to be the last race for people like Laurent Jalabert. He's been a champion in the past, Mazeo. He's in front of his home crowd here, so perhaps you might say, oh yeah, David, that's dead easy to pick him. But at the moment, I'm going for Mazeo. But at the end, this man might be there. Getting very close to the start now with the 201 riders lined up from number 1, which is Oscar Frio from Spain. He's got, in fact, 13 riders in his team, because normally they allow you 12, but as he's a world champion, see on the right-hand side of the screen, and there they are now. These are the Spanish at the front, with Oscar Frio looking for getting his 3rd world championship. That's why he wears number 1. Moving over to Germans lined up there too as well, and going right the way back down, we go from there into the Italians, right the way down to Kazakhstan at the back. And 201 Yakovlev of Kazakhstan. No mean rider himself either. There's so many favourites in this. Also so many riders will long to go for a long one maybe. 37 nations, 201 riders in this, the elite men's championship of the world from Zolder. 256 kilometres. If you've been watching some of the programmes coming into this Bond football, I know the motorcyclists may come to join us later on. We're going to give you 1 hour as the race gets underway, and it's again the 12.8 kilometre circuit we've been using in the women's road race, the junior women, senior women, and also the elites and the junior men. The junior men under 23s. They're using exactly the same circuit, so those who've been watching our programme so far will be no strangers to what's going on here. They're going around this Zolder circuit now. We'll be coming back, I say 12:30 Central European time, 11:30 in Great Britain, and then right the way through to the finish. No interruptions except the occasional adverts, and by God, we need them to pay the way, and also pay the fines if we got taken on one side. I'll tell you later on how we got here. There's still a lot of people that we passed still trying to get in. That they mixed, just quickly, they mixed the press with the VIP cars, and it was just unbelievable. Anyway, we got here, and with a story to tell about David Miller and John Herity in just a moment. Let's see how they settle down now, because when they come round here, they're going round this big swinging part of the course called the Sterrenwacht. That's where they are now, and then they will come up along the pit straight. That's the other side where the pits are. From the start-finish line, they'll be running parallel to the pits in just a moment, and that was a danger area in the other races. It narrows down quite a bit with the pits that are there, and the 10th you'll spot just shortly, where they'll be getting drinks and food throughout the race, and then they go through there, they start to go towards the top end of the circuit, and that is a little bit of a drag you'll see when we get out there. Those are the pits where the teams are there, and interesting now, of course, they've got the national pits there. Many of these riders, you see the Mappy bus, they have interest in the race. Well, the Mappy are stopping their sponsorship at the end of this year, but there's a mixture here, and we'll talk more to Sean Kelly about this. The difficulty, in fact, just quickly, Sean, there we're seeing like the Mappy bus, obviously they're stopping, but as they go along here on the left-hand side, we saw the Domo bus surrounded by by spectator. This is the World Championship, the individual World Championship. They're selected by the nations, but they ride for different sponsors. Is there sometimes a bit of I don't know, cooperation is the word, I suppose, between nations who are riding for the same sponsor? We shouldn't let the cat out of the bag, but I got the feeling last year in Portugal that suddenly when the chips were down, the Italians, I said as we started our programme, they got 10 men in the last 40, and they've had a right pig's ear of it.
Yes, well, that's always been a problem with the World Championships. The riders are riding a trade team, as you said, Mappe and the other teams, and then they go into a World Championships in a national team, and it's difficult to put riders in just you know, a couple of days before the event and get them to ride for a leader or for two leaders. So it's always been a problem in the big strong nations, and I think, you know, we see it last year, and definitely again today we're going to see it once again. And then there's other riders who ride in different teams who will give a handout maybe to riders who are you know, in a different nation team but in the same trade team. So we have seen that, and depending on what possibilities a rider have, I suppose. If he hasn't any possibility himself, well then, if there's a big name in a team, in another team, he can give them a handout, and I think we've seen that, and we will see it again, maybe even today.
So we've got Sean Kelly here, great knowledge and insight into the sport. They've just come around the chicane. You may have just seen that, the red and white stripes on the chicane on the motor racing circuit. That is the corner where Gilles Villeneuve in 1982, he met his death in the qualifying of the Belgian Grand Prix, and he crashed there, and that was it. Because his son is still racing now, and this circuit has been used 10 times for Belgian Grand Prix of the Formula 1 circuit, but already they've put the hammer down, they've gone down the road here as if they suddenly decided this is a warm-up lap, and there goes the Union Jack, there goes the Danish flag, and I think it's a sensible place to go to the front, because what's going to happen when the bunch comes around? This is the hairpin, takes them back onto the main road. We're now onto the road, off the circuit, and already then the French are deciding to have a bit of a go at this one.
Jackie.
Not the Jackie Durand.
Yeah, of course.
Who else? He's just finished the Paris Tour. He was in a break there for 250 kilometres, and eureka, 1 week later, it was last Sunday, guess what?
Yes, amazing. He's an amazing guy. We've said it in the Tour, David, and many times in the Paris Tour, of course. It's amazing how this guy can go out there and do those distances and still be so strong in the end. But we see him here, you know, how slippery it is. You know, he almost lost it there, and as I was saying, you know, they're going to be very cautious in the first number of laps. But riders will be nervous as well in the first laps to stay up front, because if it does start to speed up a bit and you're behind, well, the risk of crashing. So it's going to make the race, I think, more active. If it was dry conditions here, nice sunny conditions, I think they would relax. A lot of the big favourites will relax, certainly, and take it easy for the first number of laps and get settled into the race. But they don't have that opportunity today, because you have to stay near the front if there's any bit of racing done, because of the risk of crashes, guys going down, with it being so slippery.
Now then, Jackie Durand's been caught by a very active bunch. It began to split coming out of the circuit, but it looks like the gaps are coming down. They're going along the thing called the Kirkstraat, and that means the old church. So we're going past the church of St. Quirinus, and then turning out onto another sharp right-hander, rather nasty one too, along the West Line. And they've got maybe about 1.5 kilometres of good straight roads as Jalabert starts to move through here as well. The French seem to have got a little plot going between these two already. Jalabert's a very good bike handler likewise, and under these conditions, it looks like it might have dried out a little bit here. They turn right, a long run down to Westlawn. So the French have got their tactics worked out, but let's hear about the British tactics from the one and only Mr. Russell Hamilton Williams, who was talking to the Great Britain team manager this morning, who nearly ended up in jail, did John Herity. So first of all, let's let slip the tactics from John Herity to our British team of two.
Well, as you say, we've got a very strong team of two riders. We've got Julian Wynne, the current national champion. Oh, cry, woof! Sorry about that. We've got
one of the French riders again.
So we've got a strong team of two. We've got Julian Wynne, the current national champion. Of course, we've got David Miller. And obviously, David's not... he is a good sprinter when it's in a small group, but I think, obviously, today his tactics is to actually get away. But just coming back to the French, apart from... we were talking about Laurent Jalabert, he's got his brother as well. But also the person we could look out for, if it comes to a sprint, we're talking about... did you see the corner here? Oh, sorry. Did you see him come around the corner? Oh, foot out.
That was Moreau, was it?
I think so. Yes. But just talking about the French, we're all talking about Cipollini.
He doesn't fall off. He falls off quite regularly, doesn't he?
No.
So we're talking about Cipollini and McEwen, but the French have Jimmy Casper.
Yeah, I'm surprised they'd taken him into the field, actually, because at one time he wasn't going to be selected because they didn't think he could last the distance. I mean, he won some stages in the Tour de l'Avenir recently, but the stages there are shorter. He seems to be able to win the short stages and get into a sprint at the end of that one, but I suppose they had to bring a sprinter in case it all came down to sprint in the end. But let's hope they all stay upright on this early, nervous lap as the riders, then the 201 riders, go round to complete that first lap. About halfway round now, you can see how the water is on certain parts of the circuit, dry in other parts. This must, Sean, make him as even difficult. Should it be better to be all wet or all dry?
Yes, it's the most difficult when it's wet like this. It's just a little bit wet. If they had a lot of rain, it would be washed a bit better, but the surface is always difficult because of the oil and rubber.
Kazakhstan on the attack at the moment, and we'll pick up his name. I'm not going to have time to put on my headphones here and pick up Radio Tour, so I'll leave Sean Kelly and Russell Williams to keep an eye on things while we tune into Radio Tour, and we've been picking up from them anything that's happening at the back of the race, because things happen at the front you see, things happen at the back that we pick up from out there. This in fact is Mufyev of Kazakhstan, 198, M-U-R-A-V YEV. I'll have to spell it out from time to time, because I know that up in Kazakhstan they're probably listening to Eurosport's coverage, because not all the terrestrial stations cover the whole thing from front to back, as Flickinger now has been sent out to market. The French at the moment are doing a lot of work at the front. They sent Jacques Duron down there. Jalabert went out as well to try and join up with him, and they close it down. Francis Moreau decided to take the shortcuts to the barriers, but stayed upright doing it, and now they've sent Flickinger out there to join up. Look at that long line here, and danger time looks like the Irish fellas at the back. Not the best place to be, is it?
No, it's certainly not the best place to be if it starts to race, but you know, if it goes around for a number of laps at a steadier pace, well then it's not going to be too bad. But you know, with the road being wet, being so slippery, when it does turn on, it's very hard to move up, because in the corners you can't come by guys. So it's, you know, it's going to be a nervous race, and you can see that there's a lot of riders up the front here, and that is because of, you know, the slippery surface. They're going to be trying to stay near the front for the first number of laps, and hopefully settle down later. But if it hangs in like this for the day, it's going to be very difficult in the final laps.
Yeah, we just saw the Stars and Stripes there, and that's Chris Horner, of course, who used to ride for France de Jour, but just going down the American team. I mean, every team to me, Sean, seems like they brought a sprinter. Now I'm looking down at the American team. Obviously, I think they're all going to be working for Fred Rodriguez, who rides for Domo, same as Joan Mazea. But also the other interesting character is Anthony Cruz, who rides for US Postal. We don't see too many black riders, but apart from being black, he's a very, very good sprinter.
And as we see, it is quite active here at the moment. And as we were expecting, you know, a lot of teams, as you said, Russ, teams going to get up the road, and the French team especially, we see them quite active there. I think they're definitely going to try and get a breakaway, make the race difficult, and that way, you know, in the second half of the race, it's going to be a bit easier to break up the bunch and get away in a break, because if you tour around for half of the race, well then it's almost impossible to break up the bunch, because everybody has still got good legs.
Tell me, early you selected one of the Belgian riders. I can't remember, was it
Nico Wakehout.
Tell me the reason why his choice. Is it because obviously the form is good, but you've got an inside there somewhere?
Well, I think the Belgians are going to, you know, send the guys up the road as well, and we've seen him in Warringam. He did a very good ride. He's a guy who can get away in a break, and if he does, he is very good in the sprint. So it's as I said, it's a real lottery here, because, you know, there's so many teams want to have a breakaway, get away in the race. So the Belgians are going to put guys up the road, because they have a team, they haven't got any you know, real sprinter. So I just, you know, again, it's just stick the pin in the paper, and Wakehout is my choice.
I'm just looking down the list here. I mean, I'm looking at the Dutch team. Obviously, we've got names that we know, like Bogard and Carnarvon, who won Paris-Roubaix. But is there any particular one in the Dutch team you fancy for the sprint?
Well, if you look down to the Dutch team, you know, you don't have any great sprinters either. So I think, you know, Van Huyswyk is pretty fast in the sprint. You have, of course, Jan Korto, who is very fast, but I don't think for the distance, I don't think he'll ever you know, manage that in the end, to be able to put up a sprint like he can do in a finish of a stage race after 100-150 k's.
We just had a look at Botero then, who's won the individual time trial. He just came up on our screen. They put a little subtitle behind it under his name. You back at home will have seen that too as well. Sean, just a word about his time trial. I mean, I don't think you were actually here when we did the coverage of that, but looking back at his performance in the Tour of Spain, he was up and down like a yo-yo. Here he is in the road race. Is he possibly a dark horse today for the road race?
Well, we've seen him. He's so unpredictable. You know, in the Tour of Spain, we thought he would be up there for the general. He wasn't, you know, able for it in the mountain stages last time, and you know, still had in that one stage, and you know, came out of the Tour of Spain and did a very good time trial. And you know, we weren't really expecting, because the performance of the Tour of Spain wasn't great. But I think today again he would be, you know, he could be very strong. He could be good in the end, and he could find himself in a breakaway. And if he does, anybody gets into a breakaway, well, it's, you know, it's anyone's chance. In an 8 or 10 man group, there's going to be a lot of attacking, and I think you know, he's on form to win the time trial he has. So that is the main thing.
Russell, we saw the Great Britain jersey moving up there.
Yeah, that was looked like it was Julian Wynn, and Julian Wynn's our current national champion. But John Heracy said to us this morning that Julian Wynn was actually going to sacrifice himself and just ride specifically for David Miller.
Puncture at the back at the moment. We'll try and find out this point just shortly. Back wheel for Austria. Right, back then with the race.
We just mentioned Julian Wynn there. Julian's one, I think we've got 6 riders. Is Julian just going across? Julian's one of 6 riders here who don't actually have a professional contract. I know he rides for Rudy Project and Phil Griffiths back in England, but does actually have a professional, you know, Elite One team.
Well, there's a lot of riders. What was that you were finding out about Italians? You said on the web, on the, I think, was it, but cyclingnews.com, did you get it from there?
Yeah, they're actually saying that at the moment there's over 100 Italian professionals without a contract for next year, because obviously a lot of the teams are folding. You know, we think of the big teams like Mappe, and it's okay for the big riders. I mean, you think of people like Robert Hunter from South Africa, who's in the field today. He's going off to Rabobank, and Bettini's going to Quick Step. But it's the other guys. Chamil?
He's actually turning into team management now, and he still looks fit, mean and ready to ride his bike. What a great competitor he was too, and another rider who decided to retire from the third field. We're not going to see the last one, I don't think. He's going actually to manage that Itera team, and we wish him the best of luck on that move. I suppose he'll still operate out of Belgium. They seem to be building up that team, which is based in Spain. Ekimov was the man who was managing it the early part of this year, and then he decided to make a comeback. He's going so well. Any chance you think of Chamil making a comeback, Sean? He gets and does like what Ekimov did with the Itera team.
No, I don't think we will see Chamil making the comeback. Surprisingly this year that he retired after the stage win in the Tour of Belgium, because I thought he would hang in there and go for the Worlds here, because this sort of circuit, and especially on a day like today, a hard man's day, if they start getting the rain, it'll definitely be that. And you know, it would suit him, the flat circuit, you know, big powerful guy. And I was amazed that he didn't hang in there, because he was knocked out in the 3 days in the pan when he broke his finger, so he wasn't able to contest the classics at the beginning of the year. But you know, he decided to go out on a win in the Tour of Belgium.
So the Belgians here got a big crowd at the Zandvoort Stadium. We've been here before in the past at this famous racing circuit, and that was when Harm Ottenbros was the winner of the World Championship. It was in 1969. And in 1970 the World Cyclocross Championships were held here, and it is rather, looking at the circuit today, almost like a cyclocross if you sort of venture off. But the big problem is, and the comment was being made yesterday, I forget who it was talking to us about it, Sean, is that there's nowhere to run off on this circuit. They barred it all the way round, and we saw the crash yesterday when they were going into the barriers. There's no way you can sort of go into the field, or there's no run-off point at all in some of these corners, and with the barriers all the way, and the little feet sticking out, you can see them there. Once you get close to the barriers, bang, if you hit one of those. We saw one of the elite women neatly park her bike. The front wheel went through the barrier. There was no advertising on it, and the handlebars hooked over the top, and it was actually parked square onto the rest of the racer field. But is it normal to have it completely barried all the way around? I can't remember now. I used to think sometimes part of the road circuits I've seen for the World Championships end up by going like through fields with just red and white tape to stop the spectators getting in the way.
Yes, I think it's not the normal thing to be barriered all the way around. But of course they're expecting probably so much people here for the race today, especially that they have to barrier, and it allows the people maybe a bit of freedom as well, because if they keep the barriers out a bit, the people can move up and down the side of the circuit all the time. So it depends on what way, you know, what sort of a grass shoulder they have to the side of the road, and maybe that's the reason that they have to push out the barriers a little bit onto the road. And certainly we have seen that it's been a crash or something, and it's the bunch is grouped up together, they've hit the barriers, and that is a problem when you don't have a run-off period. You could avoid a lot of crashes if you had some place to run off a little bit.
Confirmed from the radio tour that it is Jackie Durand. You can see him out there too. And man who's worked this to good success in the past. He won the Tour of Flanders, so he's no stranger to the conditions that we're having today by doing just that, going for a lone breakaway. Went originally with three riders, so one of them were hidden, the Russian got dropped, and then in towards the back end he finished just ahead of Weismuller, was it? I forget the name chap he went out with, but certainly he did it then. And last weekend he nearly got the Paris Tour, but Jakob Pill beat him to the line after 250 kilometres. It must have been a jolly good warm-up then. This is 256 kilometres long, almost exactly the same distance. I think the Paris Tour was 257 kilometres. So the riders, lots of them turned up for the Paris Tour. We saw people like Cipollini ride that one. Didn't contest the sprint. Zolder came through to take a third spot, but a lot of other sprinters in that race who were in this race too. 250 kilometres, 257 kilometres. Sean, a nice little warm-up, I think, last week against this one, and a similar sort of, obviously, circuit but flattish race.
Yes, well, it was definitely a perfect preparation. The style of race, very much like today, although it was from an in-line race. But anybody who was up there, like Jackie, definitely in form. But a lot of riders we didn't see. I think we'll be seeing.
They've just come out from the Zolder circuit, back out onto the roads, and Schmidt here trying to get away. Looks like he's going to pull back in. The French marking everything. We've seen Jackie Durand go off the front. He's been pulled back in. Schmidt's having a go now, and no wonder, because that last lap was 47.4 kilometres an hour. 48 kilometres an hour is 30 miles an hour, so they're just a little bit less than 30 miles an hour, and that lap time was 16 minutes and 47 seconds. When they come through next time, there'll be 18 laps to go on this circuit, and the speed at which they're going at the moment, that's going to be, I think, probably one of the record speeds in the World Championships. If going back over the years that the World Championship have been held, the fastest time was set up in Plouay in the year 2000, when on that particular occasion Weinstein's won, and the average speed was 42.9 kilometres an hour. So we want to make a note of that. We'll see if we're going to break that one. And before that, in 1998, Kammerzind at Valkenburg, of all places, went round in 42.8, and before that, going back to 85, when Joep Zoetemelk won at an average speed of 41.5, and then in 1970 Jean-Pierre Montserrat won the World Championship at a 41.4, and then I'll go down to the fifth man hour selection, because it was Harm Ottenbros on a very similar circuit to this one, and on that occasion 262 kilometres were covered, and the average was 41.10. So it looks like we could well have a faster race today. So Harm Ottenbros winning on this circuit in 1969, then Jean-Pierre Montserrat, who won in 1970 at Leicester. So it's not the first time we've used motor circuits, by the way, because at Leicester that was taking on the Mallory Park circuit. And Mallory Park is a clubman circuit, much smaller than Zolder, not a lot, but it's still a bit smaller than Zolder, and he went out into the countryside, and Jean-Pierre Montserrat took the World Championship jersey, and that turned out, they talk about it being the plague as regards wearing the jersey, the kiss of death, because in fact Jean-Pierre Montserrat was killed in an accident. I think he ran into a bus or something in a race, but the poor man was killed. He was an excellent young rider, up-and-coming young man, but he did on that circuit, finishing on the lap of the circuit there at Mallory Park. Just one big lap and out again at the countryside. He won in 1970 at 41.4. Joep Zoetemelk winning in 41.5 kilometres per hour, and then Kammerzind at Valkenburg 42.8, and then at Plouay Weinstein's at 42.93. What intrigues me is that they're going yet again. Morrow now going, well, the last time he tried this one, he nearly went straight into the barriers, and now he's going off down there, so it looks like they've got some plot here, the French, to keep having a go. Sean, over the years that I've been involved with the pro scene, it goes back an awful long time now. In fact, Belguim was the first time I turned up to see a pro race, and that's going to be a long, long time ago. They did look at using Belguim for this race, but opted for this circuit. The pro race seems to ultimately to go slower and go faster towards the end. I mean, if we're doing here 47 kilometres now, would you look at that as being the nervousness and trying to keep the thing spread? Because normally they ride much more calmly and it goes faster and faster, whereas the elite race used to sort of start fast and go slower. I mean, if they're going to keep this up, that's 48 kilometres now, at least 30 miles an hour. Surely they can't do that until 4:30 this afternoon, British time.
Well, it's going to make it very difficult, and it's going to be a very tying down process if they keep on like this, and it's a combination really of things that is making this happen here. The wet roads, I think, is the main thing here, because a lot of riders want to stay up near the front. It's dangerous. If it was dry conditions, as I said a little bit earlier, I think it would be much more relaxed. Certainly for the guys like Cipollini, Oscar Freire, the real sprinters, they would sit back in the bunch in 50th position and leave the thing, leave the race, get on with it, and hopefully that will come together in the end for a sprint, because that's all those guys are interested in. And leave their teams work out the tactic and calculate what has to be done. And also the cornering, you have to slow down a lot here in the cornering, so you have to accelerate to get up the speed again. So that's also going to play on the tiredness of the riders. And also you have to concentrate so much here all the time, so that is that also will come in, and it will make the body more tired. So a very difficult race, but that will make it easier for the guys to break it up earlier on, because a lot of riders will be tired, and I think to get a breakaway would be much more possible if they race like this for the first half of the race, and then when they take on the real racing from there on, riders will be starting to get tired. So it will be a very interesting race and a very hard race with the way they're going out doing it now.
Are you glad you're not riding?
Well, I think...
What was this point that would suited you? I mean, you've had your misfortunes in the race. I think, was it bronze medal, the third at Chambéry was your best performance at the Worlds?
Yes, bronze, 2 bronzes in the world.
So would you like to be riding today?
Yes, well, today is a circuit, but it's not the perfect circuit for me, because it's a real sprinter circuit, and unless you can get away in a break, I would not be able to win against a Cipollini or against an Oscar Freire, because those guys are real sprinters. And I was talking just earlier on there with Urs Fruller. He was.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes, who was with
how many times was world points champion, wasn't he?
Many times,
and he rode
yes.
with Rally too. He used to do fantastic prologues as well. He was a great rider, wasn't he? Very fast though.
Yes, very fast, and with Jack Michaud actually, who are all the Phonak team now. And I was saying, well, in the sprint against those guys, like a Fruller in my time, there was no way I could beat him in a sprint in this circuit. So this sort of race would suit me. We have to be hard and hopefully walk the sprinters down a bit and maybe get away in a break, because that's the only way I think I could win a race. If it was going to come down to a sprint finish, I just would not be able to contest against those guys.
We're watching the race still settling down, going down onto the second lap they're on now of the race, which is going to take them some 20 laps around this circuit. And again, the Dutch are on the attack. We're very close to the Dutch border. In fact, we've been staying at Maastricht alongside the River Maas at a very nice hotel, very much Americanized hotel, and a lot of Canadians are staying there, coming over to look at the circuit and make their arrangements for the Worlds, which will be there next year. My goodness, these flags and flags poles are a bit dangerous hanging out there, but that's the Belgian. There's another Belgian flag, and we'll probably see the Dutch flags too as well. The riders from the Netherlands going very well indeed. Let's run down on the team from the Netherlands just to put you in the picture. They've got Bogart, Boven, De Jong, Knaven, Kurtz, Kroon, Schmitz, Traxel, Van Dijk, Van Heijswijk, and Verhoeven and Bart Voskamp. So that's the team from the Netherlands, and then still out there in front we've got Moreau trying to plough a lonely furrow here. Obviously French tactics, if we go down, keep the speed, stretch it out a bit, and I suppose at some point the elastic might break. But the French team then, a quick rundown on those riding in that blue colour. New sort of jersey they've got this time. They slightly can get confused with the Italians, as you'll see later on. Very similar sort of blue. It's just that the French have a bit of pictures on the back. In fact, it's the cockerel on the back. And so the French team are Brochard, Casper, Durand, Federigo, Flickinger, Jalabert, that's Laurent, and Jalabert, that's Nicolas, Moreau, who's down the road at the moment, Renier, Vasseur, Veronk and Vergonde. That's the French team, and at the moment down the road it's Christophe Moreau, number 139 for France. The field behind seemed to slow down a bit, and still Christophe Moreau down the road. See lots of those yellowish coloured jerseys there. That I think is going to be the Spanish team at the front at the moment, looking at the interest of Oscar Freire. Let's have a quick rundown then on the Spanish team. Wearing number 1, Oscar Freire, last year's winner and the year before. Can he make it the hat-trick? Astarola, Bellocchi, Diaz Justo, Garcia, Acosta, Guterres, Orillo, Lastras, Perez Rodriguez, Pradera, Sevilla, that's the Oscar himself, Tola and Zobeldia. Many of them coming here from the Tour of Spain. We now have no headphones say that it's about 20 seconds is the lead, and we've got another attack coming off. In fact, no, he's going for the back, isn't he? He's getting back. No, he isn't. No, he's attacking here. We keep looking up for our notes here and have a quick look. And this is the chap we saw go before, Muriev of Kazakhstan. So he's quite chirpy. He's got a bit of a gap to go across here. The Kazakhstan team then, Andreev, Kashinkin, Kivilev, Misarov. Crash, crash, crash.
Yes, this is, as we said, David, the barrier situation, no runoffs. We can see exactly what you're talking about there. The barriers are really close, and if something happens, a guy go down, you have no place to try to avoid, and they just, stack up on top of each other. See the Irish guy O'Loughlin actually there, he's just changing a wheel. I think even when a guy gets a puncture and he's slowed down, he's coming back in the group. We have seen it already in some of the races early in the week. There's a movement in the bunch, and they seem to touch the barriers on a few occasions, and it wasn't really the crash that it was the guy slowing down, coming back with a puncture, and it tightened up a bit, and guys touched the barrier, and then there was a crash. But it was really the puncture that was the problem from the beginning.
Yeah, Morev confirmed to be on the attempt to get back. This is the gap then, 23 seconds. A call for Italy, a back wheel over the radio tour. Bortolami now, it's decent enough, that's Lombardi to me. Anyway, they've had a bit of a problem back there, the Italians. I think that Simon's, I won't say settling down. Ross, keep your eye on the screen, because I'm going to read an email, and it's from Ben to David Duffield, and I'll read it out as it's come through. I haven't had time to sort of really interpret it. Urgent, big capitals. Can you convince the UCI to move the dangerous barriers around the course back behind the grass verges to reduce the number of violent crashes? This is especially important just after the corner, so that the riders overshooting the bend, looking at the action replay of this one, a slow motion replay, he says that overshooting the bend can at least fall off into the grass and not bounce back into the path of other riders. It is obvious that the riders are hitting the feet of the barriers and being thrown back onto the circuit. Action must be taken before any more riders are seriously injured. That was from Ben, an email that's come through, and thank you for that. It came in through Eurosport.com and sent on to me here. Thanks for that, Ben. You're convinced, you're actually paralleling what we've been saying on this so far, but you can see with the crowd here, there's no way they can do anything about these barriers. They're there in place, they've been in place right the way throughout this whole of this week, and unfortunately they have been causing a lot of injuries. The British riders, Russell, we know they've had some problems.
Yeah, but we've got a strong team here in...
Harrity told me one had broken his finger, one that looked like he'd also broken his... He's got his whole arm in plaster, hasn't he? His fingers like that. We've heard that Daniel Lloyd, he's had all his front teeth knocked out in that big crash as well. 3 teeth were knocked out as well. We had it in the race yesterday, the junior men's race. 3 of our 4 riders came down. In the women's race, we had Cook come down, and it was very much to do with the circuit and the barriers. They were not under normal case going to be brought down like they were. So yes, if Pat McQuaid comes up here, he was on the committee, by the way, that selected this circuit. Perhaps it's wrong of us to be so critical of the UCI, but ever since I saw they were having this circuit, and do bear in mind that around here the racing cars go, the trucks go, they have truck racing here. there's going to be a small amount of diesel on the circuit, or oil on the circuit. There's going to be rubber as well, because the race cars leave a little bit of rubber on the circuit as well. We saw yesterday when the rain came down just beyond here, when they come in towards the finishing, so just here now, it was just like trying to sprint on ice.
Yeah, the other problem they got is, if it happens, if people like Jackie Duran get away, on this actual circuit, it takes 6 minutes.
No, it's tomorrow.
Is it? Sorry, is it tomorrow? It actually takes 6 minutes. So if he gets it, if a group gets a big lead, they've both got to come into the same entrance, so that could be chaos as well, couldn't it?
Yes, well, I think you know, if we look at during the week, certainly the ladies' race yesterday, when it's wet, you know, it was unbelievably slippery out there. But in the junior race, we see a lot of crashes, and certainly the one in the finish, you know, that was a little bit of inexperience as well. I don't think you know, we would see that, certainly not with the pros. On dry conditions in the sprint, you know, it will be very, very rare if we see a crash in the sprint, because there will be teams there, you know, winding it up for chip. Go wrong, well then, you know, it's certainly going to be a big pile up, and the juniors are always that bit nervous and a bit inexperienced. But as you said, if you have runoff area, well then it does help. But you know, the UCI don't think about the riders all the time. I think they're thinking about getting huge crowds in here, making some money on the organisation, and you know, that's what their objective is.
There speaks the man who had lots of experience of watching one of the UCI commissaires, Brun, having a bit of a chat here. As you rejoin us now, the car coming up here looking after the USA, because we just heard that one of their riders has punctured, whilst my colleagues keep their eye on the slippiness of this particular course. They've come back out of the, they will be shortly coming back out of the circuit, and then going around the more calls here from Belgium this time.
Birthday boy, Jurgen Museo, your selection, I think, 96, let's just check the number. Yeah, Museo's punctured, back wheel.
Yeah, confirmation coming over from the Red Tour that he's punctured. Taking it very calmly. That's one thing I noticed when we were watching some of the junior men and so on having problems. They were leaping about. They was very calm, Sean, his reaction then to Museo, to the fact he's punctured. There's no sort of panic, as I thought. There's a professional.
Yes, well, I think at this moment in the race, there's no need for panic, and you know, he's just making a tyre change there, a puncture problem, but you know, it's early days yet. I think he has the experience, although it's, you know, these conditions are not going to be really great for the guys to relax, like a Museo, who, you know, probably the tactic will be in the Belgium team that he will be in the second half going in the attack, and the guys who are going up now, you know, will be just to open up the thing and make the race difficult. Earlier on, and at the moment, we see a good few of the Spanish riders up around the front here. I think their tactic would have been not to allow too many riders to get up the road. A 1 or 2 man group would be the perfect situation, because you could allow them to take quite a lot of time, and it would be that easier to take them back. But if you allow a group of 12 or 14 guys, then it would be very difficult. So the Spaniards seem to be working to that tactic in the first 2 laps. And we see Museo is, you know, he's coming back here. Both of them are, you know, quite casual at the moment. No, nothing really to worry about. Just taking it handy to get back onto the rear of the bunch again.
Yeah, just talking about Museo there. I mean, we talk about tactics. Do you think last week in the Paris Tour he made a wrong tactical move, because he didn't wait for the sprint, because he was only a few points down on Bettini. He could have contested the sprint instead. He took off, didn't he, on the last hill, didn't he?
Yes, we see here O'Loughlin, the Irish guy who was behind that crash, or was in that crash, and he was changing a wheel. So he's lucky actually that Museo had the mechanical problem. He can't get back on with him, but. Yes, you know, in Paris too, Museo, he did go across to Petacchi and the other Bartoli. So it was, you know, it was worth the chance, because if they stayed away, well then he would have got, you know, some valuable points for the World Cup. And in the sprint, I don't think he was confident getting up there anyway, because the sprint in Paris Tour, you know, it's, you know, a very long straight of 2.5 Ks, and I think he was always concerned about that.
And on the Belgium selection, I mean, everyone's talking about a sprint. I know for Belgium we've got Tom Steels, but obviously Tom hasn't been going so well this year, but a lot of people are talking about, I think one of his younger daughters has had a bit of health problems, so obviously that's going to affect him as well, isn't it?
Yes, well, Tom hasn't had great, great performances this year, and in the races of latter, he's been getting up, getting places, but he hasn't been the Tom he was, 2 years ago at all. So I think, it's going to be difficult for him if it comes down to a sprint here with the guys, the other big sprinters like of Cipollini and the Zabels and the Oscar Freyers. I don't think he could. I don't see him pulling it off here. But then you never know. He's in front of his home crowd, and he could always, pull a surprise out of the bag. We've seen it happen before.
And of course, if we look down the Belgium list, some other names we haven't talked about yet is obviously Peter van Petegem and also the young Tom Booner from US Postal.
Yes, well, Bolan actually, he said that in the paper earlier in the week, he said, like, he was asked what the tactic was, and he said, well, I'm going to do my race. He seemed to be very confident in that, it's a problem for Jose de Coa, because to get all the guys to pull together, it's going to be difficult. And by the way they're talking in the paper, we're going to see that there's going to be more than one team in the Belgium team.
Russell?
No, just saying, is that Museo again, just getting his brakes adjusted there? I always remember that happening to me, and the mechanic leant out the car, and all of a sudden I heard ding, 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 ding. I thought, what the hell's going on with my bike? What it was, the mechanic had all screwdrivers in his pocket, and as he leant over, they're all falling out on the road. Sorry, I thought I just mentioned that, Sean. No. You like that one, don't you, Sean?
Well, it's a thing that happened quite often, I would say, because they would have in their top pocket, and they would drop out like a pen would drop from your pocket.
Right then, as we've now got a bit of a quiet time, the two riders down the front at the moment, Morrow and Muravyev, as we're going back into...
Bjarne Riis,
yeah, Bjarne Riis. Saw him in the hotel. He was staying in the same hotel as ourselves. So this is a hunting ground for some of the pro managers, isn't it, eh?
Yes, it certainly is. As Russell said, there's a lot of riders without contract, but I think there's a lot of director sportees here. All the director sportees, I would reckon, are here because I've seen so many going around, during the week, and they're not really only here just to watch the race today. They've been, finalising riders in their teams, and also with sponsors. Probably, there's a lot of sponsors around here who do be tying up sponsors for, bike sponsors, material, jerseys. So a lot of that work being done in the last number of days.
You're listening to the Eurosport team. That's Sean Kelly, and next to him on the right hand side of the commentary point here, Ross Williams. I'm David Duffield. Welcome then, as they're now going through. When they come through next time, there'll be 17 laps of the 20-lap circuit still to go. And just to update you what happened at the end of the second lap, the position there was Christophe Morrow, went through, and the time elapsed so far 32 minutes and 57 seconds. That last lap they went around in 16 minutes and 45 seconds. That's an average speed overall now of 46.6, slowing down a little bit now, but 46.6 the average speed for the overall race at the moment. Morrow going through with Muravyev, and the gap then was 23 seconds. It's now grown then to 1 minute and 20 seconds. So the riders easing back a bit, 1 minute 20 seconds, and then sent off down the road yet another rider to try and catch up with him, and this could cause quite a few problems, I think, if he gets up to there, because this is Victor Hugo Peña, and he's also a very good rider when it comes to this sort of distance and riding up. He's got a big he must have left it a bit too late though, Sean, don't he? 1 minute and 20. A bit of the bunch is eased back now, but perhaps he should have gone half a lap earlier.
Well, I think the guys out front, the two leaders, Morrow and Murelet, I don't think they're going to be riding, full out. So I think Peña could just bridge the gap, because with such such a distance still out to be covered, I don't think the two guys out front are really giving it 100%. So I could see him coming across and closing down the gap on the two leaders.
Going through the second pits, the pits on the far side of the circuit, and then they come back through in towards the finishing circuit. They'll come through next time with 17 laps to go of this 12.8 kilometre circuit.
And also Victor Peña is also a very, very good time trialist, but it just seems a shame because he just took off, and one of his teammates from US Postal, Joachim, was having problems at the back earlier. But of course they're all running for, they actually forget about their sponsors and just think about the, well, so Sean tells me, forget about your individual sponsors and just think of your team. Is that right, Sean?
Well, that is the normal the normal rule, but as I said earlier, you know, sometimes when they get to the final, there's some of the riders give a handout to teammates in the trade team, and they're not in the same national team, because, you know, the riders don't really maybe have a chance for himself, so he end up doing some work for maybe the leader of his trade team, which he's riding with, you know, 9 or 10 months of the year.
You're looking at, well, not exactly 201 riders. We've got a couple down the road, in fact 3 down the road. So the main field now eased back a little bit. The speed is dropping, allowing those leaders to increase their gap, which the last time check was 1 minute and 20 seconds. It seems to be getting a bit warmer out there, thank goodness, and as they're going through Boulderberg with 2 riders down the road, 1 minute and 20 last time check we had, with one man trying to get across the gap of Vicky Hugo Pena, and it's got a lone old furrow to plough, because it's a long way up to that leading 2, so they might just about make it as we're turning round through the village then and going back down up towards the run parallel with the motorway. They've just come past the St. Quirinus turn, and then they're going on Westland now, and again another right-hander, and then they go across the lakes, the Tillaman Lakes. That's a great place for wild birds, by the way, if you have a chance to look out there too, if you're interested in bird watching, but I think they will probably come to watch the race too as well today. They'll turn right again at another church at St. Job, so in fact coming here today we had a problem in that the local church was turning out, and the people who'd been to worship were trying to drive back along the narrow road that we were directed to, and we found ourselves coming, we had to go on the outside because the traffic jam was horrendous. It took us 2 hours to do a journey we do in less than 40 minutes, and most of the time we were having to go down the wrong side of the road, and found ourselves confronted with the lights flashing because we had the right hand side. They put the VIPs down the same road as the press, and the VIPs were enormous numbers of them, and they were quite happy to get here just in time for the start, or half an hour after it started. They got a full day here to take it on board, but we had to start work exactly. We got here with 5 minutes to spare, Russell and myself. We also had to walk about a mile. So many people out there say, oh, I'd like that job of being a commentator. Yeah, but also we've been freezing for the last few days. A bit warmer now up here. We're enjoying it though, and I hope that you'll dip in and dip out. I'm sure that you'll want to go maybe, what are you going to do on a Sunday? But we will be here right the way through for this first hour, then we have an hour's break, and then we come back for the last 4 and a half hours of the pro race.